Hi, how are you doing? It's Kate Ryan here from Flavour.ie, and this is my weekly podcast, not podcast at all. Hi, Alchemy You, how are you doing? This is my weekly Periscope where I pick a food topic and I just have a quick chat about it, really, something that kind of either appeals to me or is a bit of an opinion piece or something like that. So today what I'd like to pick on, I suppose, really, are sort of two food headlines that grabbed last year, which one was a lot of bad press that bacon got, and also a lot of bad press that bread got as well. Now, sort of every year there's something that kind of comes through, that there's some big scientific survey that's been done, and all of a sudden we find out that, you know, something's not good for us anymore. And I just kind of wonder, what really kind of annoys me is this kind of whole dumbing down of these headlines that, you know, we get these massive headlines about, oh, all of a sudden bacon's no good for us, and then everyone goes off bacon. There actually was some statistic that actually showed that the sales of bacon and bacon related products just fell off a cliff after this headline came out, and it kind of really harmed the industry. And it just kind of struck me that it's this kind of the way that the media kind of represents things just for kind of like a quick headline. And there is a whole world of difference between a really cheap packet of bacon that you might pick up from, I don't know, like say your local Tesco or any supermarket really, and something that you might buy from a local pig farmer who's raising rare breed pigs on low intensity farms that are free range and organic and producing bacon and bacon products from that. So I just kind of think like it's really important for us as consumers to kind of try and get beyond the headline, and kind of say, well, no, actually it's not all bacon is bad for you, thanks very much. And you know, it's really about educating us as consumers about choices, and, you know, what makes a product good and what makes it bad. So, you know, food essentially is not cheap to produce. It shouldn't be cheap to produce. And if it is cheap to buy it, then there's something has gone wrong in the supply chain somewhere along the line. Bread got the same kind of rap as well, you know, that, oh my God, you know, none of us should be eating bread because it's wheat and, you know, and all this kind of stuff. And in fact, there's a world of difference between your sliced white loaf of bread, or pan as we call it here in Ireland, and say a loaf of sourdough bread that might take, you know, bones of 24 hours to actually make, you know, that's made from fermented sourdough yeast. This is kind of the way that, you know, we may have heard of this real bread movement, and this is what this is trying to kind of put forward, is that, you know, if you go to the supermarket, you buy a sliced white pan and you devour that, it's not going to do you any good. But if you go to a real bread maker and you buy a proper loaf of bread, a sourdough or any other kind of bread, but something that's actually been made in the traditional way, then again, you shouldn't overindulge. I mean, my last week's Periscope was all about overindulging. Which part of Ireland are you visiting there, Mylene? You might let me know, because we're down in West Cork. So yeah, you just really do see the difference, yeah, as you say, Alchemy You, and you know, the difference that you feel in your body between eating just a normal slice of white bread and something like a sourdough. You don't feel as bloated, you mightn't feel as sick, you might not get a headache, you won't get as much a reaction to it. And so it just really kind of goes that not all food is created equal, basically. And if we kind of extend the analogy out to dairy, which is another thing that's been getting a bad rap lately as well. Do you know, a lot of people are kind of going off dairy, going off bread, going off wheat gluten and all this kind of stuff. Now, I mean, even myself, like what I kind of notice is very rich dairy is, okay, there, give me a moment there and I'll come back to you on that, but there, I just finish this point and come back to you. So with, say, myself, I've noticed that very, very rich dairy is not really agreeing with me anymore. So I'm just substituting rich dairies for things like nut milks and things like that. But Darina Allen, who people may know from Ballymaloe Cookery School, is like the Denison of Irish food writing, basically. She swears by the power of raw dairy, and she won't drink anything else. She won't feed her children or grandchildren anything else. They were all raised on raw dairy, and absolutely none of them have any allergy to dairy, and they have a very healthy body as a result of it, good immune system, all the vital nutrients that are there. And we can say the same as well for chocolate. I mean, we're really lucky here in Clonakilty. We have one of 3 bean-to-bar chocolate makers, which basically means she's working directly from the cocoa bean to make her chocolate by hand in small batches. And she uses all fair trade ingredients, and makes everything by hand. And she actually goes out and she actively tries to find substitutes to sugar, so that you're not using processed sugars but naturally occurring sugars and things that don't spike your GI index as much. So there's a massive difference between going out and, say, buying a bar of Cadbury's chocolate, which we all love from time to time, but it's absolutely laden down with sugar, like bad sugars, and obviously fats as well to get the flavour in it. Whereas even if you just make a simple switch from milk chocolate to dark chocolate, it makes a massive difference. So exactly, yeah, good quality is so much better without the sugar. So moving from dark chocolate, from milk chocolate, means that you start taking out the sugars, you start taking out the dairy as well, but you're just kind of left with the really rich cocoa flavour. And I often kind of say, like, it's knowing what you're craving. So if you feel like you want chocolate, it's like, well, ask yourself this: is it actually chocolate that you're craving, or is it actually sugar that you're craving? And if you can kind of decide for yourself which one that is, then you're more than likely going to be able to identify what you're actually craving. So a lot of the time when we say we want chocolate, it's maybe not that, it's actually something sugary. So in that case, rather than reaching for something that's high in processed sugars, you just maybe reach for a piece of fruit or something like that instead. And then going on to sugars then as well, there's lots of other different kinds of sugars that are better for you. So obviously raw honey, agave, cacao flour as well. Coconut flour is very good natural sugar substitute. None of these things spike the GI index as high as processed sugars. So I suppose really kind of the whole point of what this is sort of general theme through these periscopes is that unless you have a genuine health complaint, there shouldn't be any real reason for you to want to exclude things from your diet. It's perfectly acceptable to have everything in moderation, unless you have genuine health grounds for doing so. And I do make an exception as well for vegans, because I think vegans are excluding things on the basis of animal welfare issues, which is a completely different thing altogether. But it is a very extreme diet, so same with paleo and things like this. And to just educate yourself as well and kind of say, well, if you are reaching for that packet bacon, or if you are reaching for that sliced pan, and it's cheap, just kind of ask yourself, why is it cheap? If it's cheap to buy, it's because it's been cheap to make, and that means it's not going to be doing you any good at all. So just kind of have a think about it. Instead of going for the cheap bacon, have a look to see if there is a local producer that is stocking something on your shelves that is rare breed, is a good one, low intensity farms. It doesn't have to be organic, but just like this, the low intensity farming is a really, really important thing. That would go for beef cattle as well, actually. So just kind of have a think about those sorts of things. So but I don't know if the lady that was asking me about coming over to Ireland is still there, but to be honest, Dublin is full of great places to go and visit and eat. And in Cork as well, actually there's a place that I would recommend. It's called Cafe Paradiso in Cork. It's actually a vegetarian restaurant, but it's recently been voted the best restaurant in Ireland, even though they don't serve meat. So if you're going to the city, Cork City, I'd say definitely go there. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to wrap up this Periscope for today. Thanks for tuning in and listening. I hope I've given you some food for thought, and I'll see you again next week at the same time. I'll choose a different topic as well. So thanks very much for tuning in. Bye, see you next week.